Today, gamers have more options than ever. Massive open worlds, epic boss fights, 4K graphics, and VR that throws you right into the action. But it has not always been this good. So, how did video games go from this to this? Get ready to level up because this is the evolution of video games. 70 years ago, computers were massive, expensive machines found only in universities, labs, and places like NASA or the military. It was a far cry from the home consoles and handheld games that are everywhere today. One of the first computer games was the Nematron, a simple math game that amazed crowds. Over 100,000 matches were played, even though the machine won 90% of the time. In 1947 came the cathode ray tube amusement device. Not the catchiest name. In the first game with an electronic display, players turned knobs and flipped switches to fire electron beams. By the 1950s, scientists were using computers for more than calculations. They were creating games. Alan Turing, the man who helped crack the German Enigma code, a machine the Nazis used to send secret military messages, worked on chess programs. In 1952, Sandy Douglas built OXO, the first digital tic-tac-toe game. Soon came blackjack machines at Los Alamos, where the first atomic bomb was built, along with checkers programs and war simulations. These experiments were groundbreaking, but nothing compared to what was to come. The first video game made just for fun came out in 1958, Tennis for Two. American physicist William Higginbotham used an oscilloscope as the screen and built aluminum controllers with a button and dial so two players could hit a ball over a net. It looked like a science experiment, and it was, but it was also a hit and the first step toward Mario Brothers, Sonic the Hedgehog, and all of the games we love today. As computers got smaller and faster, students began experimenting too. In 1959, MIT students created Mouse in the Maze, where players drew a maze with a light pen and watched a digital mouse search for cheese. But then in 1962, the world got its first real taste of gaming greatness with Space War. It became a favorite among programmers and was the first game ever ported to multiple computer systems. In 1964, John Kemeny created the BASIC programming language, making game development easier. This inspired engineer Ralph Baer, who in 1966 had a bright idea while working on military defense systems. What if you could play games on your TV? He soon began working on a prototype called the Brown Box, which was later licensed to Magnavox. In 1972, Magnavox released it as the Magnavox Odyssey, the world's first home console. It came even before cartridges, using game cards, simple circuit boards that changed what appeared on screen. The Odyssey came with 28 games on 11 cards, including Haunted House, Simon Says, and a game called Table Tennis, which would spark one of gaming's first controversies. Meanwhile, in 1971, Nolan Bushnell built Computer Space, the first arcade video game, loosely based on Space War. He went on to co-found Atari and, after playing table tennis on the Odyssey, decided to create a better version for arcades. The result was Pong, released in late 1972. It was so popular that machines broke down because they were stuffed with quarters. Magnavox quickly noticed the similarities, and they were not happy. So in 1974, Magnavox sued Atari for copying table tennis, and won. They kept going, suing almost every major game company over the next decade and raking in over $100 million in settlements. That's wild when you realize the Odyssey itself only made about $35 million from selling 350,000 consoles. Magnavox made nearly 3 times more money from lawsuits than from the console that started it all. But lawsuits could not stop the rise of Atari. In 1975, they struck gold again with a home console version of Pong. Then changed gaming forever in 1977 with the launch of the Atari 2600. It cost $200 at release, over $1,000 today. But prices soon dropped, and by the time production ended in 1992, more than 30 million consoles had been sold. For the first time, arcade hits like Centipede, Pac-Man, and Donkey Kong could be played at home. Meanwhile, arcades were booming, especially in Japan, where Space Invaders was so popular that the country reportedly faced a 100 yen coin shortage. Created by Taito, Space Invaders became a global phenomenon and grossed over $3.8 billion in just 4 years. Seeing those profits, toy giant Mattel jumped in with the Intellivision in 1979. It had arcade ports like Pitfall, Frogger, and Burger Time, but stood out with games like Sea Battle and Utopia, one of the first city builders, plus realistic sports titles like NFL football. By 1981, Mattel had nearly 20% of the worldwide video game market, and by 1983, had sold over 3.8 million consoles and 20 million cartridges. But even with all these sales, the Atari 2600 dominated, at least until they released E.T. The 80s were a wild ride, full of epic highs and spectacular crashes. At the start of the decade, Pac-Man ruled arcades. Our pizza-inspired hero chomped his way into pop culture, later selling over 8 million cartridges for Atari's home console. Ironically, that home version is now considered one of the worst games ever made. In 1981, Donkey Kong introduced the first video game character who could actually jump. Known only as Jumpman, he'd soon get a new name, Mario, and his own legendary franchise. By 1982, the first officially licensed movie video game was released for the Atari 2600. Nope, not Tron. That one wasn't officially licensed. The answer? Raiders of the Lost Ark, and it ran on an 8-kilobyte cartridge. For comparison, a modern game like Call of Duty is over 100 gigabytes. That's more than 10 million times bigger. Movie-based games were everywhere in the 80s, but most of them were terrible. The most infamous? E.T., the Extraterrestrial, rushed out for Christmas 1982. It was so bad that 700,000 unsold copies were buried in a New Mexico landfill, turning the desert into the world's first video game graveyard. Many blamed E.T. for the video game crash of 1983, but in truth, the market was flooded with millions of cheap, low-quality games. Then, a hero arrived from Japan to save gaming. In 1985, Nintendo released the Nintendo Entertainment System, breathing new life into gaming with colorful graphics, catchy music, and a cast of charming characters. Mario, no longer just Jumpman, returned as Nintendo's mascot, now joined by his brother Luigi in the legendary Super Mario Bros. Nintendo didn't just save gaming, they put it on a leash. Their infamous seal of quality kept bad games out by limiting how many titles third-party developers could release each year. It was controversial, but it worked. Players trusted the Nintendo logo, and by the end of the 80s, Nintendo dominated the market with nearly 90% of all US home console sales. Nintendo followed up with The Legend of Zelda and Metroid in 1986, proving that its seal of approval really meant something. And in 1989, Nintendo conquered the handheld market with the Game Boy, bringing Tetris to a whole new audience, including women and older players. Even grandparents were hooked, spending hours trying to beat their high scores. Despite being a simple puzzle game, Tetris is the best-selling game of all time, with over 500 million copies sold, though most of those sales came from mobile devices. Fun fact, speaking of mobile games, if you grew up in the 90s, you definitely remember Snake. The 1998 classic came pre-installed on over 400 million Nokia phones. By the time the 90s rolled around, video games were everywhere. Microsoft even bundled a digital version of Solitaire with Windows 3.0 in 1990, giving millions of office workers a new way to procrastinate. Sega had tried to keep up with Nintendo in the late 80s with the Sega Master System and its mascot Alex Kidd, but Mario and the NES ruled the 8-bit era. The 90s were all about 16-bit power and the dawn of 3D gaming. To show off the speed of its new Genesis console and its so-called blast processing, Sega introduced a brand new mascot in 1991, Sonic the Hedgehog, designed to be cooler than Mario. He was so fast that developers had to slow him down to keep players from getting dizzy. Sonic gave Sega the boost it needed and sparked the very first console war. Nintendo hit back with the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, or SNES, and made everything super. Super Mario World, Super Metroid, and a new graphics feature called Mode 7 made high-speed racers like F-Zero pop off the screen by making flat 2D images look like they were moving in 3D space. The SNES era also brought Street Fighter II and Mortal Kombat, which turned living rooms and arcades into battle arenas. PC gamers had plenty to celebrate too, with real-time strategy classics like Dune 2 in 1992 and Warcraft: Orcs and Humans in 1994, which introduced millions to Blizzard's fantasy universe that would later become a global phenomenon.
And I know you will show restraint when exercising your great power.
And then came Dune, the game that changed everything. It didn't just popularize first-person shooters, it basically invented modern multiplayer deathmatches and became a cultural phenomenon. But the real game changer was the 3D revolution. Mario and Sonic both made the leap to full 3D in Super Mario 64 and Sonic Adventure. The Nintendo 64 also delivered The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, still considered one of the greatest games of all time, while GoldenEye 007 proved that first-person shooters could thrive on consoles, not just PCs. Sony's PlayStation crashed onto the scene, using CDs instead of cartridges and making games more cinematic than ever. Titles like Tomb Raider, Final Fantasy VII, and Gran Turismo delivered huge worlds, next-gen graphics, and epic cutscenes. By the late 90s, the PlayStation had become a cultural juggernaut, selling over 100 million units and cementing Sony as a major player in gaming. And just as Nintendo had dominated in the 80s, it closed out the decade by conquering the handheld market with Pokémon Red and Blue on the Game Boy, turning portable gaming into a global obsession. Fun fact, esports might feel like a modern trend, but in the 90s, when it really kicked off, fighting games like Street Fighter II and Marvel vs. Capcom became tournament favorites. The prize pools weren't as massive as today, but they were still impressive. At the 1997 Red Annihilation tournament for Quake, the winner drove away in a Ferrari. The 2000s made gamers more connected than ever with online multiplayer and introduced the world to rage quitting. While PC gamers were living out virtual lives through The Sims, exploring RuneScape, or fighting enemies in Counter-Strike, Microsoft arrived to the console party, launching its flagship game Halo on the Xbox in 2001. The Xbox was basically a PC packed into a console, but it revolutionized online multiplayer with Xbox Live. That same year, Grand Theft Auto 3 changed gaming forever. It revolutionized open-world design, giving players unprecedented freedom to explore Liberty City and cause chaos. But Microsoft's Xbox was no match for Sony's PlayStation 2, which became the best-selling console of all time. A crown it still wears, with over 160 million units sold. Its biggest hit was Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, selling over 17 million copies and proving to Rockstar that sometimes crime really does pay. Shadow of Colossus left a mark in 2005, showing that games could be more than action. They could be art, with vast landscapes, emotional storytelling, and unforgettable boss battles. Nintendo still held the crown in handheld gaming. The Nintendo DS let players take new Super Mario Bros. On the go, raise Nintendogs, catch Pokemon, or even test their brain age with brain training. On a PC, a new force was quietly reshaping the industry. Valve's Steam platform, launched in 2003, made digital downloads mainstream. By the end of the decade, Steam was the king of distribution, crushing physical retail and giving indie developers a real shot at global audiences. It was the start of the digital era of gaming, and just 1 year later came their first major game, Half-Life 2, which changed the FPS genre with revolutionary physics and immersive gameplay. In 2004, World of Warcraft expanded into a massive online realm, complete with its own virtual economies and, for many, a full-blown addiction. Development was colossal. 5.5 million lines of code, 1.5 million assets, and nearly 40,000 NPCs. Luckily for Blizzard, all that effort paid off. The game peaked at 12 million subscribers in 2010, and by 2014 had over 100 million accounts.
Looks like you're about to get pwned. Yeah!
By 2017, it had earned more than $9 billion, cementing its place as one of the highest-grossing and most celebrated games ever. By 2005, Guitar Hero let gamers live out rock star dreams with plastic guitars. And in 2006, the Nintendo Wii introduced motion controls that turned living rooms into tennis courts and bowling alleys. The Wii focused on fun over graphics. And while Mario and Link still starred in big adventures, it was Wii Sports and Wii Fit that got the whole family moving. With over 100 million units sold, the Wii didn't just succeed, it dominated the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. However, for those who cared about graphics, the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 delivered a full HD glow-up. 2007 became one of the greatest years in gaming history, with Halo 3 as the Xbox 360's crown jewel, drawing millions onto Xbox Live. Call of Duty 4: Modern Warfare redefined shooters and set the stage for online multiplayer as we know it. BioShock pulled players into the underwater city of Rapture, blending shooting with deep themes about choice and power. Mass Effect pushed storytelling forward, making players face decisions with real consequences. Assassin's Creed introduced players to a new era of parkour and hidden blades, while Super Mario Galaxy wowed Wii owners with creative worlds and gravity-defying gameplay. After 2007, gaming kept raising the bar. Grand Theft Auto 4 set a new standard for realism in open-world games, while Resident Evil 5 carried the iconic horror franchise into HD with more action-packed gameplay than ever. And in 2009, League of Legends arrived, becoming a global phenomenon and setting the stage for competitive gaming as we know it today. That same year on social media, Farmville exploded, pulling millions of casual players into Facebook's endless cycle of planting and harvesting. But an even bigger game emerged that same year, Minecraft. The game handed players a box of virtual Lego and said, "Go wild." It proved you did not need fancy graphics to build entire worlds, just blocks, an axe, and imagination. What started as an indie game by a single developer became the best-selling game of all time outside mobile, with over 350 million copies sold. At the same time, mobile gaming was exploding. The iPhone in 2007 and its App Store a year later gave instant access to games anywhere. By 2009, Angry Birds and Doodle Jump had players hooked, followed by endless runners like Temple Run and Subway Surfers that turned swiping into an obsession. Clash of Clans and Candy Crush Saga later turned free-to-play games into a goldmine, while Pokemon Go proved mobile could create global events, sending millions outside to chase digital creatures. PUBG Mobile carried the Battle Royale craze onto phones, becoming a worldwide hit. But the true giant of mobile gaming is Honor of Kings. If you've not heard of it, that is because 95.6% of its revenue came from China. Still, it became the highest-grossing mobile game ever with an estimated $18 billion, more than even GTA 5 has made. Fun fact, mobile gaming started as some simple touchscreen fun, but quickly grew into the biggest gaming market in the world, bigger than consoles or PC. In 2024, the video game industry generated an estimated $187.7 billion, with $92.6 billion coming from mobile gaming, nearly half the global total. The 2010s were a golden decade for gaming, bringing legendary franchises, unforgettable stories, and entire genres that took the world by storm. Open worlds ruled the era. Skyrim let players lose themselves in endless quests. GTA 5 turned Los Santos into a living playground. The Witcher 3 raised the bar for storytelling, and Breath of the Wild flipped Zelda on its head with total freedom. By 2018, Red Dead Redemption 2 pushed realism to the extreme. Your beard grew in real time, and even your horse felt the cold. But this decade wasn't just about open worlds. It was about challenge, too. The Dark Souls trilogy defined a new genre with its brutal difficulty, cryptic storytelling, and the infamous "you died." Ubisoft's Assassin's Creed kept players leaping through history, while Naughty Dog closed out Nathan Drake's journey with Hollywood-level action in Uncharted 4. Sports fans had their moment too. FIFA 18 became the best-selling FIFA ever, helping the series earn a Guinness World Record as the top sports franchise of all time. Streaming also changed how we played and watched. With the launch of Twitch in 2011, gaming became something millions watched, kicking off a new era of streamers and esports stars. Dota 2 took competitive gaming to the next level. Its World Championship, the International, kept breaking records, hitting over $40 million in 2021, the biggest prize pool ever for a single game. Gaming grew more immersive too. The Oculus Rift kicked things off in 2012. PlayStation VR brought it home, and the Meta Quest made VR wireless and accessible. Players could step inside the action, whether it was Half-Life, Alyx with its stunning physics, or the terror of Resident Evil Village. VR proved it wasn't just a gimmick, and the best is still ahead. In 2013, consoles leveled up with Xbox One and especially PlayStation 4. Its library showed how far games had come. The Last of Us proved games could rival movies in storytelling. Horizon Zero Dawn blended open-world freedom with a fresh universe, and God of War reinvented a brutal series as an emotional journey. Meanwhile, indie developers proved small teams could create magic with Stardew Valley, Hollow Knight, and Cuphead. And in 2018, a small studio created Among Us. What started quietly exploded during the COVID-19 pandemic. But while indies were surprising the world, big studios were making waves too. In 2016, Overwatch stood out with its bright, cartoony style, teamwork-focused gameplay, and iconic heroes like Tracer and D.Va. Blizzard's hero shooter was a massive hit, pulling in $1 billion in its first year. Then in 2017, Nintendo launched the Switch, a hybrid console that could be played at home or on the go. Besides Breath of the Wild, one of the greatest games ever made, Super Mario Odyssey brought some of Nintendo's most creative platforming. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe became the most popular Mario game ever, and Super Smash Bros. Ultimate united the entire roster for the Ultimate Showdown. The Switch wasn't just a new console, it proved home and handheld gaming could finally be one. The same year the Nintendo Switch launched, an entirely new genre exploded, Battle Royale. PUBG sparked the trend, but Fortnite became the phenomenon, earning $9 billion in just 2 years. Its free-to-play model, goofy dances, and celebrity crossovers pulled in a whole new audience of kids, teens, and even adults who had never touched a game before. Gaming also changed in how it was sold. Subscription services like Xbox Game Pass gave players a Netflix-style library. From Skyrim to Fortnite, the 2010s proved gaming wasn't just entertainment, it ruled the world. 2020 was a strange year for the world, but a golden one for gaming. As lockdowns spread, millions turned to games for comfort, connection, and escape. Animal Crossing: New Horizons and Doom Eternal released on the same day, creating one of gaming's most iconic contrasts. Peaceful island life meets pure chaos, and some of the best memes of the year. It was also when a new generation began. Sony's PlayStation 5 and Microsoft's Xbox Series X and S arrived, bringing lightning-fast load times, sharp 4K worlds, and a leap that marked gaming's next era. But not every launch was smooth. Cyberpunk 2077 was one of the most anticipated games ever, until it crashed and burned at release. Plagued with bugs and performance issues, it sparked massive outrage. Yet through years of updates and the Phantom Liberty expansion, it rose from disaster to redemption, setting a new bar for open-world storytelling and design. And Cyberpunk was not alone in that journey. No Man's Sky began in 2016 as one of the most disappointing launches in gaming history. But through years of free updates, it transformed into something extraordinary. With over 18 quintillion planets and endless exploration, it became the ultimate comeback, often hailed as the greatest redemption story in gaming history. Meanwhile, technology itself leveled up. Unreal Engine 5 changed how games are built, offering near photorealistic lighting, real-time world streaming, and tools so powerful that small developers could create visuals once reserved for blockbuster studios. Demos like The Matrix Awakens and recent releases like Black Myth: Wukong showed what the next generation of gaming truly looks like. With technology evolving faster than ever, developers began to dream bigger. In 2020, Microsoft Flight Simulator stunned players by recreating the entire planet with breathtaking realism, letting them explore the Earth like never before. Incredible, carefully built fantasy worlds like Elden Ring in 2022 continued to push the boundaries of what a game can be. Shaped by the creators of Dark Souls and Game of Thrones author George R.R. Martin, it became the most awarded game in history, and for good reason. 1 year later, Baldur's Gate 3 felt like a wild Dungeons & Dragons campaign brought to life, while Astrobot, a heartfelt celebration of PlayStation's legacy, evolved from a simple demo into a full adventure, nostalgic, yet fresh and modern. And now, in 2025, gaming keeps raising the bar. The Nintendo Switch 2 arrived with Donkey Kong Bonanza, bringing the series back to 3D with open, destructible environments. Kingdom Come: Deliverance 2 expanded its realistic medieval world, while Claire Obscure Expedition 33 impressed with its hand-painted art style and emotional storytelling. Soon after, Death Stranding 2 pushed Hideo Kojima's strange universe even further, blending art and gameplay like no one else. And the evolution of video games is far from over. The next generation is already loading with The Elder Scrolls 6, The Witcher, and of course the most hyped game ever, GTA 6, all ready to push gaming even further. We truly hope you enjoyed this journey through gaming. We've also created evolutions of many games mentioned here, including Minecraft, Halo, God of War, Donkey Kong, and GTA. So if you enjoyed this ride through gaming's evolution, check those out too.